Thank you, Ariella, for coming into the studios of Radio Italia Uno, Adelaide.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Okay, so I said you're an artist, and I saw your name going through the Adelaide Design Week exhibitors. So first of all, tell us what's your participation in this festival, Adelaide Design Week, and then we'll go a bit backwards into the backgrounds of your art.
Sure. Well, this weekend, tomorrow, we're having an opening. It's presented by the gallery Household. It's the exhibition called In Collaboration With, and it's going to be about 50 artists, including myself. So it's a pretty big exhibition. The exhibition prompt for the artists was to explore the melding of two mediums together, and I chose to use the mediums of metal and wax for my particular art piece. And yeah, it was presented as a collaborative artwork, so it could be two artists working together with two different mediums, or one artist with two mediums. So I'm presenting that myself.
Okay, two mediums, that means two different types of material?
Yes, yeah, could be anything.
Could be anything.
Yeah.
So tell us what are your materials and how you're bringing them together?
So wax and metal. I've worked with them both like separately in the past, but I did choose to bring them together because of how contrasting they are in the sort of unforgivableness of metal and its solid form, and then the pliability of the wax and how easy it is to manipulate. So I was looking at that stark contrast between the two mediums.
Unforgivableness. Well, yes, I have to make sure I said that correctly. So what does that mean?
I just think it's so different from wax, and it's also so different from like our bodies, and my art usually has sort of an underlying focus on bodies and humanness. So metal is sort of the opposite of what I would think of as flesh, and being is kind of this cold, hard unforgivingness of like a solid, flat form, and that was why I chose it. And
so if wax is the opposite or different, then it's what, very pliable, it's very easy to manipulate.
Yeah.
How did you bring them together?
Well, I just heated up the wax, and I chose a metal box, which I then covered with like a mesh material. And I sort of had these metal spikes that I'd used in previous artworks before that I erupted through the mesh and sort of poked into to create these sort of metal peaks. And then I used the hot wax to just pour over the top and sort of accentuate that contrast, accentuate the solid forms melting onto the wax, you know, that kind of undulation of the materials, I would say.
So there's, I wouldn't say soft, because eventually the wax becomes hard.
Yes, but delicate.
Delicate, yes, that's right, that's good, yeah. Okay. And is that standard? No, you're saying it's different from your other pieces of art.
I would say it's a little different, but it is the same. It is along the same themes as a lot of my other works. I have used the spikes in the past as wall mounts to prop work on, but this time the spikes are becoming the focus themselves. So they're getting a little bit of a spotlight this time. And there are pieces that I actually made in my final year of university that I've sort of been able to use a few times over. So it's not too dissimilar, but I haven't really used a lot of metal before, and I haven't used them in this way.
Okay, you just mentioned university now, so that can bring us on to explaining your story. And yes, I have spoken to an artist recently, Lily Henschke, or she's been using her maiden name, which is escaping me now, Securo, Lily Securo, who graduated from the Adelaide Central School of Art. And she's referencing her Italianness and her parents, grandparents' diaspora from northeastern Italy. Now, okay, so university, you studied art.
Yes, I did. I just completed my honours last year, but the year before I completed my undergraduate. So I did my undergraduate in contemporary art, and I did my honours in creative art.
Oh, is there a difference?
Not really. It's the follow-on. It's just what they call the degrees. Yeah.
No, but contemporary and creative art.
Yes, the creative art honours is called creative art because it's inclusive of a lot more art forms than the contemporary art degree. So it included photography, film, design, creative writing, sort of a more broader term. And what do you have to do in this honours year? You have to write something, you have to produce some art? Yes, I had to produce an exegesis and an exegesis artwork, which was my thesis, and then my artwork that complemented that writing.
Okay. So what was your exegesis?
My exegesis was called Pleasure Unbound, My Queer Joy as Ooze.
My queer joy as ooze. So
yes.
Queer joy and ooze. So ooze is what, like that wax stuff?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Ooze is a term I use quite broadly, and it's just to mean a sort of temporal substance that represents that humanness and that body, that like slimy body that we are.
Okay. And joy, why joy? Why the word joy?
I think joy becomes really powerful in the conversation around sexuality, around feminism, around being human, because there is a lot of conversation as well, like in modern society, but there is a lot of conversation that focuses on sort of negative or maybe the discrimination of these people, and finding the joy and finding the way to celebrate yourself sort of becomes then how we reclaim that space in a positive way.
Okay. So how now do you put all those things together in a physical work of art?
Yes, that was the challenge of the year. I really focused on film in that because it gave me the opportunity to use materials that were extremely temporal, which means they disappear very quickly. So I would use honey, I would use shampoo, I would use conditioner, sort of these are like everyday substances that dry and disappear quite quickly. And by filming them, I was then able to immortalize them and keep them as that ooze for as long as possible.
And how does that reflect or connect to queerness, if that's the term?
Yeah, that's the term I would use.
Okay.
Everyone has their own language, but yeah, queerness. It connected because I feel that being queer is pushing the boundary of existing in our society at the moment, and pushing those ideas of labels and stereotypes and boxes that we create or have created over the centuries. And that queerness is like the ooze, sort of finding the gaps and finding the holes that we, seep out of, and how we exist beyond those boundaries and beyond those boxes. That's how I would relate them. I think we are like ooze, We don't want to be a final form, and we don't want to be a solid thing. We want to be messy and sticky, and we want to leave residue and exist in that messiness.
And actually I've seen several little videos of yours where you do have slimy material.
Yes.
I was going to say plastic, but not plastic.
Yes.
Slimy covers over pieces of fruit.
There is plastic, yeah. I think the video that you're referring to is the honest one that I produced, and it was a plastic-covered papaya, which I covered in my ooze, and then I go into sort of undressing the fruit and taking this plastic off and scooping out all of its seeds and just leaving it as like a very open, messy pile of slimy fruit, which is obviously a metaphor for, I think, a bit more about like what I was just referring to before about like who we are as people, going beyond those boxes. It's undressing ourselves and being oozy.
Yeah. And I started to tell you before we went to air that I realised you have a very long career as an artist, and you won your first award in year 2.
Yes.
So as a 6-year-old kid. So tell us about that.
Yes, I do remember the award until you told me just before, but yeah, that was back in year 2. It was a Christmas colouring in drawing competition, I think. And I actually think I remember it. It was like a picture of baby Jesus with little presents and Christmas trees all around him. I think the prompt was like, what is the meaning of Christmas? And that was what I drew. Yes,
and you were featured in the Loreto College newsletter with congratulations from the principal. Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, well, you studied art at university. Were you doing art at high school as well?
Oh yeah, I think I was, as the year 2 award shows, I was doing art for pretty much as long as I can remember. I think my parents tell a funny story of the first time they were kind of confronted with the idea that I might be an artist was in kindergarten when I made a giraffe out of tissue boxes that ended up being taller than I was, and apparently I was very directive with how I wanted this giraffe to be made. I had a lot of opinions about the proportions of the tissue boxes, so I've been doing it for a long time, yeah.
Okay, so clearly, so the bug was in you and the inspiration was there.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's come back to the exegesis, the work. You created this physical piece of art, but when you're writing a thesis, then you also need to have, should I say, theory or inspirations. I'm not sure what terminology you use in the arts. What was the theory behind what you're doing?
Yeah, there was a lot. Over the year I did quite a lot of research into the literature and like the texts that supported my degree, but I think one main writer that was quite a big influence to me was Audre Lorde. She's a queer feminist writer from the 1970s, and a particular paper that she wrote was called The Uses of the Erotic, and it looks at the idea of women reclaiming pleasure and finding pleasure in their lives, which could be dangerous to the patriarchy because it means, rejecting the idea of being sorry for who you are and submitting to those dominant ideologies and having power over yourself and in that pleasure. So that's really where my idea of like queer joy comes from, is from Audre Lorde's writings.
Okay, so interesting. And there's a whole literature around that, and presumably it's a growing field.
Yeah, I would say definitely growing. A lot of the newer papers that I was researching, like from other, very recent honours graduates, there was a big focus on queer joy. Like I did find quite a few references. When you go back a couple of years, not so much. It is a new term, so fair enough.
Yes.
But it was nice to see that I wasn't the only one who was trying to sort of find that new path in the conversation.
Okay. Okay, you only graduated last year, so is this your first exhibition as a grown-up?
No. I did my first solo exhibition, I think I did it, oh my goodness, I can't remember if it was last year or if it was this year. I think it was at the middle of last year, and it was my undergraduate artwork that I re-exhibited with the gallery that I now co-direct at, called Felt Space. So they took me on the board at the beginning of this year, and that was a really exciting opportunity.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Tell us about this gallery.
Yes, Felt Space. We're an artist-run initiative called an ARI. So we're volunteer artists who run this gallery for other artists. So we're not a commercial gallery, we're a non-profit. There's 8 of us all together, so it's like a pretty decent team, but it's still a lot of work, and the co-directors really do lead a lot of that. They're really amazing for what they do. Yeah.
Where is the gallery?
The gallery's on Compton Street, so just off of Guja. But we are moving, so it's a very recent development. We've got a big grant and we are now able to upgrade to a bigger space. So we will be moving into the new space, I believe, in the next 2 or 3 months, but we've got some works to do on the new space before we can move in.
Where's the new space?
The new space will be on Angus Street, so it's not too far away, but...
It's useful to have a central location.
Yeah, I think it's really important for, especially a gallery like ours, where we are volunteers. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting development. So now you've graduated.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this exhibition. How does one make a living with this? Do you support yourself maybe by teaching or doing other things? 'Cause I can imagine, at least at the beginning, it must be difficult to monetize.
Yeah, I would say arts is very difficult to monetize. At the moment, I work as a receptionist as well in a medical centre. But I do hope to find a job that's in the creative sector, like, gallery admin would be like more relevant to me. I think it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky for artists to live off of their art, especially in a city like Adelaide. It's not really got the infrastructure for it at the moment, but maybe it's something we can work towards. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's true. And my understanding is that not most, or a lot of artists do teach or have some sort of, whether it be in the formal classes or one-on-one or like that, and then that helps supplement, at least initially, the time that it takes to build works of art. It's very time intensive.
Yeah, it is really time intensive. It's also, for me, because I do draw on personal experiences, it also can be emotionally draining, which is a different, experience. A bit tiring. Teaching, I think, is a really interesting, a really positive way for artists to make a living. It's probably not in the books for me at the moment, just because I do hear from other arts teachers that it can create a drain on your own creative practice. And so as a young person who doesn't really have a lot of financial responsibilities at the moment, I think I like to focus on myself and just sort of push my career forward before I focus on teaching others. Yeah.
So now we're coming to the end of the program. Do you have, let's look ahead, continue to look ahead, do you have other exhibitions or events or activities planned or kind of on the radar?
No, I've got this one this weekend, and then it'll be back to applying and trying to find more opportunities and making my path. Yeah. And I was just featured in the Note magazine as well. I got a page under the arts and culture section, so that's an interesting opportunity as well. But yeah.
Okay, now I just remember we need to get into the Italians. I see, I'm not sure if it's obvious on the Facebook page, you're wearing a top with the word Sicilia on it, and on your left sleeve the symbol of Sicily. So I'm guessing the Napoli family comes from Sicily.
We do. Surprisingly, we come from Sicily. Yeah, we come from a small fishing town called Calatipiana in Sicily, and my bisnonna and my nonna immigrated over when my nonna was about 5 years old and came to Adelaide. Yeah, so our family's pretty big, and I have actually had the opportunity to go back to Sicily and to Calatipiana in particular to visit the family. Yeah. It was really awesome.
How was that experience?
It was amazing. I was 11 years old, and I didn't really understand the significance of meeting this family, but it was really awesome. They hosted us and fed us so much food, and showed us the town, and it was quite special. I'm very grateful for that.
Okay, at 11, maybe you're already interested in the arts. Were you appreciating the arts? There's so much, even in really small towns, small centres in Italy.
I don't remember in particular in that occasion, but I do remember visiting in other regions, visiting galleries and being really inspired by a lot of. I love the sculptures, like the statuesque, really tall sculptures. They're amazing.
So you like the physicality?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And while you were there, how did you communicate with your relatives?
Well, I didn't speak any Italian, as I still don't, but my dad, it was his first language, and he has tried really hard to keep as much as he can. It was tricky for him when he first started school. He didn't speak any English, and it was sort of scolded out of him to the Italian, so he adopted mostly English. But my dad relearnt a lot when we went back, and we also had, thankfully, one of the cousins over there who had English pretty much fluently, and so he was sort of able to translate for us young kids between all the relatives. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Well, in fact, we have reached at the end of the program. I have to say thank you to Ariella for having come into the studio and have this conversation. Earlier on, we spoke to Lara Merrington, who's one of the organisers of the Adelaide Design Week, and it was very good to have this very quickly organised couple of conversations. So remind us, your exhibition is tomorrow and Sunday?
Tomorrow and Sunday, 11 to 5. It's in Jackson Square.
Jackson
Square.
Which is where?
Is
it Mountain Street?
Yes.
Okay.
You remember better than me.
Yes, I remember the street because I know Mountain Street.
Yes.
And so your piece of art is there?
Is there, yes.
And but there'll be lots more
elsewhere. So many.
Yes,
so you can come see them all.
But also, yes, and we'll see a lot more of you also in the future.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So we'll say goodbye. We'll close the Facebook Live.
Bye.